Okay. All right. Very good. So good evening, everyone. My name is Dani Beit-Or, and I'm both your host, your speaker, your entertainer for tonight. And I'd like to immediately jump to our, give me 1 second, please. Jump to our presentation file, and we can take it from there. So give me 1 second. One more second. I accidentally closed the window and imported one, so thank you. Okay, we can get started, and I welcome your questions while I speak. I'll try to jump around between the windows so I can definitely see your questions, but by all means, I'll try to take questions as we speak. All right. Great. Loading. Okay. Everything was working fine when we tested it, made sure earlier today. Not sure exactly why it's not loading as we speak. My apologies. True real estate events or real estate activity will have some hurdles. That's always the case. Yep. Okay, let's go to plan B. Sorry, guys. Hang on. Okay, original window is now showing, so we can probably just set up over there. All right, very good. I would appreciate your thumb up or hands raising hand or something, just so I know you can hear me and you can see the presentation, so I know I am good. I'm not talking to myself. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. All right, so what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about. I'm going to try to do it actually briefly, meaning not too brief, but I don't want to go every one of the questions that I've put together is could take could be an extensive answer. So I'm going to try to trim it and keep it straight, simple, and to the point, not not go and start expanding on every item on the extensively on the list. There's a bunch of questions there, all gathered based on many years of experience. And that's actually, let me introduce myself. So my name is Dani Beit-Or. I am based in Southern California, Orange County. I've been living here for the past 10 years, and for 10 years before that in the San Francisco Bay Area. Since 2002, so that's almost, or just about 22 years, it's when I started investing in US real estate, buying residential properties in different parts of the country. I've invested and helped our clients invest in multiple metros and states, more than the list you're actually seeing here. This is the more significant list of areas such as Arizona, Oklahoma, Florida, Texas, Arkansas a little bit, Alabama, North Carolina, and more, right? Everything here and more. So I've done a lot of activity personally, primarily working with our clients and by helping them buy residential rental properties in different parts of the country, focusing on single family, fourplexes, duplexes. Those are the main three categories that we like to invest in. Since 2004 until now, so for the past 20 years, or just getting to 20 years, I have helped our clients buy something around 5,000 properties in different parts of the country. So I've been doing it for a long time, before the crash of 2008, during, after, post-COVID, pre-COVID, different cycles, etc. I've had the opportunity to experience real estate on a very large scale, in magnitude of over many different size times of cycles, real estate cycles, and seeing high interest rate, low interest rate, flattening real estate, crashing market, accelerating market, crashing rents. It's everything, or almost everything. Never say everything, but a lot. And I served for 3 years in the Israeli Special Forces. That was back when I used to live in Israel. I want to give you a quick, simple warning. Everything you're going to see in this presentation is 100% based on human, powered, meaning there's no AI involved whatsoever in this presentation, not by putting it together, not by the content, and definitely not by asking questions and getting some responses for any of the really great tools, AI tools that we have around us. So all pure human factor. Okay. I want to just give you some resources and to let you know about a couple of things that we're involved in. So you have more than just tonight's content. We have a YouTube channel, which I put a lot of videos up there for you to watch, learn, deepen your knowledge on different aspects of real estate investing. In a very similar manner, our podcast also has tons of, I think we have 5 seasons now with probably 150 episodes or something like that. So a lot of content, sharing, telling, teaching, helping investors become better in what they do. Our website is simplydoit.net. We have an auxiliary website called reistar.com, is where we actually show the properties we are evaluating and vetting and considering. And actually, recently, we launched a Telegram channel, so people who want to follow us on their mobile device more easily, they can do that through the Telegram channel that is just in front of you as we speak. And also, I do want to mention that on January 23rd, which is basically a month and 10 days from now, I'm going to do another webinar, another session, where I'm going to talk about the LLC concept, or the LLC, yes, no, why, when, etc., in a lot of details. So I'm going to take that. I'm actually going to tackle this tonight as well. Tonight is going to be the brief version. On January 23rd, you're most welcome to register. It's free. You can dive in with me into the entire idea, concept, question of using LLC with your real estate. I've been doing it for, like I said, for 20 years or so, and I've been somewhat of an obsessed with the idea, or really spend a lot of time investigating this point of LLC, which kind of been bugging me for quite some time, for 15 years or so. Okay. Everything is in delay. All right. So those are the questions I'm going to tackle. I'm not going to read them through. I just wanted you to kind of to see what I'm going to tackle tonight. And of course, your additional questions or clarifications are very welcome, to add. I actually just added the chat here on my left. So if someone has a question, I can hopefully see their question coming up. All right. Question number one of the day: should I invest locally or out of state? Locally or out of state? Well, my answer is very simple. Where do you live, right? The whole idea behind what we go and do about real estate when it comes to real estate investing is realizing that locally, I'm in California, a lot of my clients are from the West Coast, Boston, New York, other countries. The whole idea of asking this question really comes down to, where do you live? I live in an expensive real estate market. Not only that it's an expensive real estate, objectively expensive real estate market, the rent is very cheap relatively to the purchase price. So that means we buy a house for $1 million, we can rent it for $4,000, $5,000, right? That's a poor ratio to begin with, where other parts of the country, you can probably rent, or we probably rent a $300,000 home, which is a fraction of the price, for $2,500 or so, give or take. So just to give you as a reference, right? So obviously, numbers is a very important aspect of it. But also, how much down payment, is the house I'm buying is required. Again, California or expensive real estate markets, we need a larger down payment, which either prevents us from buying because so much money is needed, or prevents us from buying locally just because we don't want to put most of our eggs or a lot of our eggs in one basket. So there's that aspect of how much down payment is required. I like to look at landlord-friendly laws. So just because I live in an area which I love to live in, Southern California, I do, doesn't mean I want to be an owner here, or I'm a little bit more concerned about being an owner here compared to other parts of the country where the laws are more landlord friendly. So that's another aspect, this. And of course, I want to consider places that I will continue having, or at least projected or estimated, renters and future buyers, as there is an influx or continuous influx of people due to jobs and what we call the in-migration, the positive migration into that area. There are more reasons, but those are kind of the essence of why would you consider buying locally or out of state. If you're living in an area, let's just say in the Midwest, and your backyard, your local market is cheaper and is actually everything that we are looking for, I would say the answer is absolutely. You should consider investing locally in your local market. Second thing I want to talk about is what a lot of us are very, comes up quite a lot, is a lot of investors, especially beginners, they're coming to us and saying, Danny, all this hustle, we buy out of state and property managers and invest in real estate and all the challenges and all of that, and I end up with $100, $150, in cash flow on a monthly basis. That seems like so low. Why would I trouble? And you know what? You shouldn't. If you're focused on the cash flow, 100, 150, 200, even if it's 300, it's not so exciting, right? It's okay, but it's not so exciting. And if you're focusing on that, I think you're missing the big picture here, big time. When I look at properties, over the years, I'm looking at what a property can benefit, the ways a property, a rental property or properties can benefit me. And I usually consider what I call the 3 engines or the 3 growth vectors of a property. Number one is the cash flow. And I'll show you in a moment how we analyze properties. And what I mean is the cash flow, I really consider realistic cash flow. How much is how much is my how much money is going out of pocket to not just buy the property, but also get it to the point that it's it's ready to take on a resident. So it's not just the down payment, it's the down payment and additional cost involved with the transaction. How much I can rent it for, realistically rent it for. What are my expenses, realistically expenses? People tend to either ignore things, forget things, or not factor realistic expenses. And then part of my expenses are the the mortgage payments. And after all the rent comes in and all the realistic expenses, I am left with, hopefully, nowadays obviously it's challenging with the interest rate, some cash flow, right? Maybe $100, maybe $150, maybe 200, whatever the number is right now. It's never, or usually it's not a very high number, but let's just call it for simplicity, $100, right? So $100 a month, not exciting. 1,200 a year, yeah, sounds a little bit better, obviously, but not that exciting as well. And that's my one growth vector, the cash flow. So cash on cash return or cash on cash is one. The two other things that I want to consider when looking at rental properties are the following. The number two is I'm making the assumption based on my 20 years of investing when I buy properties for the long term, is that over the next 5, 10 or more years, my property is going to appreciate. I should even say compoundingly appreciate year after year, even better, at a rate of 4% an average a year. How can I say 4% an average a year? Can I guarantee it or can I promise? Absolutely not. But I'm looking what has been done in this country for many, many years. And I see that looking back, on average, properties did, for definitely for the past 10 years, but even you were looking further than 10 years, more than 4% a year. 4% typically represents around the average annual inflation, or maybe 3.5 to 4% average annual inflation when we don't have COVID era, post-COVID era, or some hyperinflation situation. So pushing aside, the exception such as the COVID era, normally we're looking at 3.5, 4%. And I am just saying, I feel comfortable, even if the inflation around us, or even if last year my properties did 8% or 7%, to just use an average of 4% a year. So 4% growth on the value of my property on average, which is easier to explore, to measure on multiple year time frame, is much more or a higher ROI on the actual investment that I'm making, assuming I'm borrowing some of the money. I'm using a mortgage. So vector number one, cash on cash. Vector number three, growth by simple annual appreciation. Used to be inflation, maybe back to inflation again. So not crazy appreciation assumption, but a small one, right? Some people say it's zero. I think it's wrong. Some people, would like to think what happened in the past 10 years. I also think it's wrong. I like to be very moderate with it, careful with it, but not ignore it. So number two, appreciation. Number three, and that's our last one for what I call the total ROI on my property. Number three is when I buy a property with a mortgage, part of my monthly payments are the mortgage payments. Part of that, or significant part of that, is the first few years is interest. A little bit, is principal. So that means slowly I am reducing the principal, the balance of my mortgage, right? So slowly I am earning equity in the property, right? So if you think about number one, it's money in our pocket. Number two, it's number three, equity from appreciation, and equity from principal reduction is actually in the walls of our house, of our property, and we're not going to see it or touch it or feel it until we do some of financial activities such as refinancing or selling the property, but it's there waiting for us. So I have three vectors that are basically my ROI or my total ROI, and they're impacting my outcome with this property for, over the years that I will hold it. So if I'm doing something, if you're thinking if this is a short-term type of investment, you're not going to get an opportunity to accumulate cash flow. You're not going to get an opportunity to really build equity from appreciation. You're not going to get an opportunity to build equity from paying down the principal over a year or two or three. it really starts showing its powerness when we're talking about 5 or more years, right? The significance. So if you're buying long-term like I do, those two things are significant factors in my return on in my ROI equation. I will say that in current times, interest rate is high and the cash flow suffers. And I am assuming, or based on my past experience, there will be an opportunity in the future to refinance to a lower rate, not like we had in COVID, but maybe 6%, 5.5%. Again, next year, in 2 years, in 3 years. And that means at that point of time, my cash flow will improve as well. So just because I have a tight cash flow right now, doesn't mean I cannot benefit from the investment. It just means I'm benefiting less on the cash flow. And let's just say in 3 years, there will be an opportunity to refinance and the cash flow increases. And all of a sudden, the two growth engines of equity and appreciation are already working in my favor. And we just fueled up or increased the cash flow aspect as well. So if you're focused on the $100 a month, yeah, I get it. It's far from being exciting and maybe discouraging to even think about it. Okay, hopefully that won't skip. Without diving into the analysis, I just want to show you what I've been using for the past 12, 13 years or so, maybe 10, 11 years. This is our taken from our analysis Excel. It's something that we share with all our clients. This is something that we use. My apologies for using an older version image from when the rates were 6.125. Obviously, that's incorrect, but the analysis is still the same. We just take all the numbers and we are not skipping anything in terms of the analysis. So on the buying side, we have the price and we have the improvements to the property and mortgage related costs and closing costs, etc. Then we have the rent coming in, the property taxes, insurance. Everything is there and it's Excel. I can play with it. I can increase one item, lower another item per property. My guess that to date, we have analyzed between myself, our clients, investors, our agents. This Excel probably already analyzed somewhere between 60 to 70,000 properties for over multiple years, maybe even more, over multiple agents and investors. So we've been using this. This is my tool that without it, I feel completely blind. At the bottom, what you're seeing is actually where the growth engines are. So it's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years analysis, and we can see how much cash flow we're generating in 5 years. Again, you can see the $124 is the monthly cash flow, but over 5 years with some assumptions, we're going to generate close to $7,500 in cash flow. Now it sounds a little bit more interesting. Plus, we're going to gain some equity, 80,000, 79,000 in appreciation and principal reduction. So all of a sudden, in 5 years, we have gained 86,500. I'm rounding numbers, of course, worth on an investment of 97,000 and change, or 98,000. Now, for me, that is a more interesting or more appealing investment. Just looking at 124, I'm almost like, not exciting at all. Let's find something a little bit more interesting. Okay, moving on with a very slow responsive system today. I apologize for that. Okay, let's talk about the LLC briefly. Okay, so I think this is maybe the top 2 second or third asked questions in my career. What about LLC? Should I buy an LLC? Do I need an LLC? My take is there's a lot of talk about LLCs. It should use an LLC, not use an LLC. I think first of all, I think it's really hyped. I think there's more attorneys having a discussion about LLCs. or pushing the product of the LLC, then there's actually a justification for that. I really think it's on a case by case and the type of property you're buying and other factors that I will elaborate during the next webinar. But I just want you to kind of think about it mainly from a risk position. Meaning, if you're buying a type of investment that's a higher risk potential, let's say it's a flip, you probably want to consider doing an LLC. And if you're buying a nice rental property in a middle-class neighborhood, then you maybe don't need an LLC. You don't have to, right? LLC, there's a little bit more cost for it, a little more hustle, a little more trouble. There's some complexity to it. It's not something that I think it's immediately must be included as part of your scheme. I will tell you that over the years, I've met a lot of investors that the first thing they did is they opened up an LLC, and only after having the LLC, they started looking for investment properties, only to find out they either don't need the LLC, or they don't really need the LLC, or they open in the wrong state, so my suggestion for you, focus, if you're not sure, is to focus first of all on investing and finding the property, and then bringing the entity, the LLC, over. You can always, or I want to say most always, transfer title from your name to the LLC and vice versa. So just by not opening up the LLC does not necessarily put you in trouble, right? You can always correct after the fact. So just keep an open mind. Is it really necessary? And don't just assume just because you went to some real estate event or webinar and there was an attorney and he put the fear into you that, oh my God, we're a very litigious, country. Yeah. We're a very litigious country, and you know what? There are other things that we should consider beyond the LLC itself that could mitigate the litigiousness of our country. So don't just assume it's a must-do. Yes, I would say you probably want to consider it as an option among other different options when considering investing in real estate. So it's not the only one to consider. And like I said, I'm going to be diving into this topic, solely on this topic, explaining how I tackle this, what kind of mitigations I'm doing, how I'm more evaluating, is it necessary or not, really outlining more of a plan of how to go about this whole concept of LLC. You are most welcome to join on the 23rd of January. So a little bit over a month from now. Property managers. Remember, I'm going through the list of most asked questions we've been getting for years. I'm kind of going down the list, not necessarily in a certain specific order. I'm just, tackling them one after another. And by all means, you're most welcome to put your questions, comments as well, if you're interested or have, about any of the topics. I would appreciate not just to hear your questions, but to hear some comments or some experience. That'll be terrific. We'll make it a little bit more engaging than just me talking here. Property manager, tricky question, right? So let me tell you, first of all, I have had the pleasure, or should I say, quote unquote, the pleasure of working in a large scale with more than 75 property management companies, in my career. When I say large scale, if I had a property manager with 2 or 3 properties, I don't even consider that large scale. That's like not insignificant, sorry. It's just not a significant bandwidth, right? Large scale is probably 10 properties or more. Not all property managers are bad people, right? Most of them, or many of them, actually have good practices in place and good systems in place. They know what they're doing. They have an experience, and are trustworthy. The challenge for us is, one, identifying them, right? So I can tell you that one of the things that I do when I interview or potentially interview or looking for a new property management company, I am interviewing 3, 4, 5, 6, depending how many I need to review, property management companies in a local market. I go through probably a series of 70 questions. I don't call it an interview. I call it an interrogation. They don't know what I call interrogation, but it is an interrogation, and it's costing me anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 per just the interrogation part per property management company. So sometimes I'll have a brief conversation only to realize I'm not interested. Sometimes I will speak to 2 or 3 or 4 doing a full interrogation only to realize the ones that are more, the 1 or 2 that are more interested. It's all about finding their systems and processes and experience and getting, and checking on and asking specific questions and listening to how they answer and what they answer and how they answer. So it's kind of a very lengthy process. But what I'm trying to do when I interrogate a new property management company is to weed out the problematic ones. Now, sooner or later, even the ones that are passing through the filter and the interrogation, and we start working with them, their problems will present themselves. None of them are perfect. Keep that in mind, guys. Property managers are always between the rock and the hard place, or always putting down fires, right? Or so to speak. Meaning it's at any point of time, either the house is complaining with a maintenance issue, the tenant is complaining about something, or there is a situation with the tenant, or the owner is complaining about something, right? So they're always on the defensive. They're always trying to make everybody's happy, very much human-powered, human-driven operation, and it's challenging, okay? So for you, I would make the assumption that good, trustworthy property managers do exist. I can tell you firsthand they do. You need to better understand how to motivate them or work with them or make sure they are performing to their best abilities for you. Remember, this is your property, not theirs. And if you do that, you will probably help them succeed with your property. So my philosophy with property manager, I'm not looking to see where they fail, which is easy. I'm looking to see what I can do to help them succeed, because bottom line, the interest is mine, right? The interest is mine. And I see the comment, monitor them respectfully, is exactly the attitude. It's not just take their answers, it's following up. You know what? The best way to describe it, if you want to think about the kind of simplicity, I look at a property manager as my kind of employee or good employee, so to speak. And I want to check up with my employee. I want to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. I want to remind them if necessary, right? At the end of the day, or the bottom line, this employee is entrusted with my asset, my property. It's in my best interest to nurture, to support, to remind, to direct my employee. Now, I will tell you one other thing. Property managers who work with a lot of clients do not know all their clients very well or remember exactly what the client attitude is. They cannot guess if one client wants to immediately start an eviction process as soon as the tenant is late, and another client actually wants to wait a little bit and let the property manager try to figure it out, right? There is no right and wrong here. There's only what you want as an owner and what the property manager is doing, and you communicating this to the property manager, and you actually setting up the expectation, saying, you know what, I do want you immediately to start an eviction process, right? Otherwise, the property manager will just do what they think is best based on their past experience, the company culture, etc. But every owner is different. And just because one is thinking one way and another is thinking another way, doesn't mean the property manager knows. Actually, it means they don't, right? And they have no clue, because there's no system in the world that says, oh, this owner wants to start eviction immediately and this owner wants to wait. There's no such thing. So keep that in mind, treat them well, help them succeed. If you do that, and with respect, it will pay off for your property. Another common question is, how do I protect myself from the market crashing? I want to tell you, first of all, you cannot. There's no way to protect yourself from that, right? The only way you can mitigate and lower the chances of this is happening, there are multiple ways how to go about it, but buying the right property, buying quality property. And when I say quality, I mean at least a nice house in a nice community, in good schools, in a growing market. For me, that sings quality, right? So buying quality property. Sometimes the best way to describe a not quality property is buying the opposite. Not so good house, old house, in a challenging neighborhood, in a declining market. That I would call that not a good property, right? Or quality. So buying quality is one. And another way to protect yourself is holding the property long term. And when I say long term, I mean no less than 5 years, ideally 7, even 10 and more. Why am I saying quality and long term? Very simple. When you buy quality property and in a quality area and hold it long term, it will very likely go through some market cycles. Historically, once a decade, there's some sort of a cycle, not necessarily a crash, but some sort of a cycle. So if you buy long term, you're in quality, inherently you're hedging yourself against the sensitivity of the current cycle, right? Is there a guarantee? No, there isn't. Can you mitigate and increase the chances of you surviving this cycle, the next downturn? Absolutely. How do you do that? Well, the simple answer is I build an entire company, Simply Do It, my company, around that notion, right? So one of the core values that we start with as a survivor or a graduate of the 2008 crash is always in the back of my mind, what things can I do in order to minimize the chances that when the next downturn happens, my properties, my clients and their properties are as safe as possible or are best positioned to not suffer the most, right? And the way I really look at it is when we are looking at an investment property in an area, a metro, etc., we probably have anywhere from 20 to 25, I call it important decisions, but not critical decisions, right? But not insignificant ones. So let's just use the word significant decisions. So let's just say I have 25 significant decisions. What do I mean by 25? For example, the property management company that I'm using is a significant decision. The price I'm paying is a significant decision. The type of metro I'm buying in, if it's a growth, it's a significant decision, right? The area of the property, the age of the property, right? Those are the type when I say significant decisions. And the reason I'm using the word significant and I use 20 to 25 significant decisions, my working assumption is, let's just say I made 25 significant decisions relevant to the property, but not all the decisions or the assumptions that I made around those decisions turn out to be exactly how I expected. Let's just use an example. One of the significant decision was the estimated rent. I estimated $2,500. You know what? It turned out to be $2,250, $250 less, right? Not catastrophic, but yet one of those did not pan out as planned. When I have 25 significant decisions and 1 or 2 or even 5 of them do not pan out as planned, I still have 20 good ones, 20 good decisions that I made so far that are supporting my investment. So I like to look at it like my investment is sitting on 25 pillars, and even if 5 of them have not worked out or kind of as I planned, I still have 20 supporting my investment decision, right? Now, it also doesn't mean that those 5 who didn't pan out as planned or worked out as we anticipated necessarily completely crash. It just means that instead of 25, I'm getting 2,500 in rent, I'm getting 2250 as an example. Not ideal, but it's not terrible, right? So that's when I'm looking at the decision. I'm making a lot of those decisions in order to support my asset long term to make sure I'm increasing the chances of avoiding a crash, right? Guarantees, no guarantees here. I think you got that by now. Just a lot of significant decisions in order to make the right decision on choosing the property, the area, etc. So if I really refine my answer, quality, long-term are inherently hedging against market crashing. And even if it crashes along the way, I still want to be around the green line where they see over time an upward movement, right? So that's kind of the really refinement of my decision, quality and long-term. I'm embracing the crash. My assumption is a crash is coming, right? I don't know when. So I want to prepare for it instead of kind of feeling it's instead of being afraid or intimidated by it or paralyzed. I'm saying it's coming. If it's coming, what do I need to do to prepare? If I know what to do to prepare, it helps me make those decisions. That's kind of where I'm coming from. Another question that comes up quite a lot is, do I need to go to visit to see my property? The simple, assuming we're buying not locally but out of state, not always a pleasure or not always available or easy to do. My answer is this. First of all, when I tell it to all my clients, my suggestion is that you do spend a day, 2 days, a weekend flying out, seeing your property or the properties you're considering or the area you're considering in, meeting the local team. When you travel, especially as a beginner, it builds confidence. Confidence is important. Confidence is something that you can't just invent it, or you know what, I have not found no AI that will take all my knowledge and experience and compress it so you can actually buy it or take it from me and build on that confidence. It's still not around. Maybe one day it will be. So what I'm saying is, when you're going there, yes, you'll build the confidence. You'll be more comfortable with the area, with the houses, with the team, etc. It's really important for that, especially when you're starting out. Now, so should you go? I think that's great. I think you should. Do you have to go? Well, let me tell you what 95% of my clients do. They don't. They do not fly before, during, or after. 95% of my clients will never see their investment property. And actually, I think they don't even care much to see it. They just want to know it's functioning, right? So what we have done over the years is created extra steps, extra checks and balances in our system in order to try and compensate the lack of traveling, or in other terms, to increase the transparency. So we do a few more things. We're not inventing the wheel. We're just making it, turn better, and understanding that this will help our clients feel more comfortable, even without even without going out there. So you don't have to fly. Yes, it's recommended. We have a system to help you mitigate the lack of traveling. Now, how do you make sure you don't pick the wrong investments and make poor decisions after you buy? That's a tricky one. I think it's super challenging or hard to do by yourself, unless you're very experienced. So if you're a beginner, or not even a beginner, even if you have some experience, doing it on your own and not having that support system, the friend, it's going to be very challenging. I think that to an extent, online forums are great, but I know a lot of the times I am on those forums reading or participating or asking. A lot of times I feel that there's like a agenda behind the answer, or not an agenda in a negative way, but someone is coming from their kind of point of view of life, so to speak, or values, and it's not always mine. So is it beneficial to use the forums? Yes, for sure. Is it the whole package? I don't think so, right? I don't think so. The way I solve this challenge, and I think it's a very significant challenge for every investor, beginner or experienced, is that I've created a company, Simply Do It, which create a whole support system that we help our clients in a way use our confidence, use my experience, my knowledge, etc., draw from that and help make those decisions. Now, I got to tell you that, so for example, it starts with someone who wants to know where to buy, right? What to buy and where to buy. We help our clients with that. And then when we are looking at a property together, analyzing it, asking questions, this is something that happens here on a weekly basis. We discuss the different aspect of the property. I make sure that I tell them what I don't like about the property, what I do like about the property. There's no such thing as a perfect property, right? So we go through those, those things. Then if they submit an offer and there's questions around submitting an offer, we help them with that. Questions around the inspection, absolutely help them with that. Challenges that are coming out of the inspection and negotiation, how to mitigate, how to overcome those challenges, we help them with that. Then get to closing, they close. Now there's the challenges with listing, or how to list and what to paint and not to paint, and do I need to paint the entire house? Simple stuff. I call it simple stuff, but that's the noise of the system. That's absolutely something that we help them. The property manager that we work with, that they now work with, that we selected and they work with, they're not responding, they're not answering, they're not giving good answers, etc. They turn to us. We step in and help them resolve those problems, questions, and situations. Let me give you a few examples, right? Yesterday, a conversation with clients that are coming for their second property now. They bought a single family home 2 years ago, and now they're looking into a fourplex. We have a full discussion on the challenges of fourplexes, right? I call it the fourplexes syndrome. There's some chronic syndrome with fourplexes, and we have a whole chapter on that on our podcast if you want to understand what I'm talking about. And we went through the challenges of the fourplexes, and now they're thinking if this is the relevant for them based on their personality and how they want to conduct their investment affairs, right? It's not a yes or a no. It's better to understand the fourplexes, syndrome. That's one example. Another example is the client called in, and there's some challenge with a potential applicant, and they're not qualifying exactly, but they're not far from qualifying. And the property has been on the market for a little bit more than a month and a half, so they're a little bit not sure what to do. It's not ideal. What do? I call the property manager. I find out what's going on, a little bit more details. I start asking the property manager, can you do this? Can you do that? To mitigate. The property manager said, listen, we are not allowed in this state to take 2 months of security deposit. I said, okay, can you take first month, last month, and 1 month of security deposit as a way to mitigate the situation? The answer is yes. We found a solution. We go back to the owner. We say, hey, here's a solution. Okay, now we're ironing that item out. So those are the type of things that we get involved with our clients, and we support them throughout the entire process, before, during, and after buying, years to come. Even the question of 5, 6, 7 years later, should I sell? Is it a good time to sell? Why are you selling? What are you planning on doing? Is it personal reason, more investments, etc.? So those are the type of conversations we are having with our clients throughout the life cycle of ownership, buying and ownership, not just buying, not just where to buy, etc. I created a system. It's called Simply Do It. I call it an ecosystem that, with support and knowledge and teams and boots on the ground and lenders and insurance people, etc., in order to simplify it for our clients, the whole process of making decisions and what to buy and where to buy, etc. And we keep adding to this ecosystem more vendors that can provide better service or cheaper service, etc. So we keep improving our clients, cash flow, our clients' position. This is something that we've created, especially designed to help investors who want to go about investing, just not sure exactly who to trust and where to go and what to do, etc. So that's kind of in a nutshell how we go about it. If you're not part of Simply Do It, you're most welcome to become a part of Simply Do It. but you don't have to. You can find your own system or ecosystem or support system or a friend or a mentor or something that will help you do that, do exactly that. But I do suggest that you find that at least you do yourself a friend. I call it an investment buddy, right? Investment buddy is someone that you can bounce idea, maybe meet, talk once a week or maybe other week. Maybe some accountability, brainstorm. It's really significant to have that one person that you can bounce off, talk off, discuss. It will help you, a lot in your journey with challenges. I am that buddy to most of my clients. Me and Jessica works with me are that buddy to our clients in the sense that we have a lot of those short, discussions, how to overcome those challenges. Sometimes those discussion is showing someone how they're looking at things incorrectly or can look at it in a different way and help them kind of steer their line of thinking in a different direction in order to resolve a problem. Sometimes even letting them vent out. I have to admit that also happens. So that's kind of how we go about it, how you can go about it in order to avoid or minimize making poor decisions. Not bad decisions, just poor decisions. And lastly, I want to talk about how to get started, which is the number one question that we get. And before we do that, I wanted to just take a brief, comic relief. There is nothing wrong with this cat. He is not frustrated about how to get started. I just want to take a breather for all of us, maybe put a smile on our faces. It does look like my cat a little bit, but it's not actually. So I just wanted to take that brief moment. All right. How do you get started? Question number one, right? Number one, what I suggest to do is not start attending a lot of webinars and joining investment clubs and meetings and lectures, etc. I think it's good to do that for a little while, maybe for a month or 2 or 3, going through some different, if you're starting out, ideas, maybe looking for that investment buddy that I was talking about. But I would say number one is take 5 minutes tonight, maybe tomorrow morning on the way to work or with your coffee, and sit down with yourself and write what I call your investment criteria. And what do I mean by investment criteria? For example, what would a qualified property for you, has to look like, or at least has to look like? How many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, what year, what kind of schools, what cash flow you're expecting, ROI. You see, I'm not talking about any specific property. I just want to kind of create a vision for you that's saying, if I see a property that has C school, 300 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 1980 or later, 1 car garage, no basement, yes basement, with backyard, I don't care if it's like 5 items, 7 items, 15 items. You just go through that list with yourself and you say, this is what has to be at least qualified property for me. Anything on that list that I find, if it's qualified, I should consider buying or at least making an offer. If it's exceeding, definitely consider, doing that. If it's not exceeding, if it's lower, let's just say lower square footage or less bedrooms or older home, maybe not consider doing that property and kind of steering away from it, right? I like to use common sense when it comes to that point. So for example, if I see a property that my criteria is 1,300 and it's 1,250, I'm using common sense. That's still in the ballpark, right? But if I'm seeing a property that is a little bit smaller square footage, a little bit older, maybe a little bit, cash flow, like I call it the 3 strikes rules. I usually say, you know what, it's the combination of the 3 or more that I don't like this property. But if 1 or 2 are not perfect, but they're close, that gives me a very good rule of thumb to use about my criteria. So it's really important to do that now that I have that. And it doesn't have to be single family homes or fourplexes. It could be whatever asset you're using. Setting up that criteria, any property moving forward, you will be evaluating in order to quickly understand if this is worth wasting your time and energy and focus. I would say use that cheat sheet, determine if it's worth, maybe it's not worth it, move on, maybe it's borderline, consider, but sometimes you'll see it's actually exceeding. There's like, okay, this is my baseline criteria, and this one is doing quite better than what I am looking for, what I define as the minimum qualified, then you should definitely consider doing that or considering that property. So number one, how to get started. Instead of signing up on websites or attending meetings, is actually sitting down with yourself or with us, right? Sending creating that criteria. I already spoke about attending classes. If you're still confused, lost, don't find that investment body, not sure where to go, how to go about it, what you can do is set up a time with us, with me or Jessica, and we can have a 30 to 45 minutes-ish conversation with you and discuss, kind of make it more you and not me talking, and ask, answer questions, specific questions that you have, and some maybe a specific situation and a concern, and so on and so forth. So we can take it down a notch from a general, webinar to a very specific you, what you need, what you're looking for. Now, my promise to you, that meeting is not going to be a sales pitch. And I hope I make it, I hope my goal when I'm doing seminars like this one, webinars like this one, is to share and not to be a salesperson, because I believe if you're interested in working with someone, you will do it whether I'm a horrible seller, which I think I am, or a very good one, based on the content and how that person comes across. My goal with what we call the strategy session, the one-on-one, is actually to really make it about you, have a conversation, see if this is a good fit, if we can even help you with what you're looking for, your budget, everything, your comfort level, your comfort zone, or maybe not, right? So that's why we suggest that if you're not sure what to do, set up a time, and we can go through different items during that session and discuss with you your specific situation, what you're looking for, etc. I'm going to skip this for a moment. It's just some. Okay. If you want to do that, you're most welcome to get in touch with us. You can go jump directly to our intake form. Our intake form is few questions that we are going to ask you. It takes 3 to 4 minutes. No credit card, no social security, nothing personal. It's more getting a sense of you, some questions about you, some open questions for you to kind of think a little bit. We found that going through the intake form preps you better to the meeting itself. So it's kind of part of the process. Once you complete that form, we will get in touch with you and determine together, what's the next best step, together or not together. We'll tell you what we think. So you can go to simplydoit.net/intake. simplydoit.net/intake to complete the form, and then we'll set up a time in person if you're in Southern California, Orange County, phone, Zoom, whatever works for you. We're very accustomed to all those things. I'm getting ready to wrap our session here. So if you have questions, you're most welcome to put them in the comments, of course. So that's kind of, if you are interested in speaking with us. This is some contact information, our general email, our website, our properties website, just so you have that information in front of you. With that being said, I'm going to scroll back up to the links for the upcoming events and resources, and I'll wait here for as much time as needed to take all your questions. Are there any questions? Thank you for the time, by the way. Before we wrap it up, I want to thank you for spending this evening with me. I want to wish all of you happy holidays. I'm still here. I'm going to take questions. So please go ahead and ask your questions if you like. And if you are interested in just putting a comment, you are most welcome as well. Antonio, thank you very much. I'm so happy when you showed up on the webinar. It put a smile on my face. So I'm glad to see you're here. Always a pleasure. So I'm just going back to the links on the YouTube channel, the podcast with a lot of okay, do you advise flipping homes too? Oh, thank you very much. Good question. All right, the icebreaker. Okay. I'm not sure everybody sees those questions, so I'm going to read it. Do you advise flipping homes too? I'll give you my personal opinion, and I'm really glad you're asking this, and I'm very biased about it. I have flipped close to 100 homes, about 90 homes in my career, and I did it for a few years in the same model of multiple states, multiple teams. Started at 2000 and I want to say 11 was probably the first flip. I can't remember exactly. All the way to 2018. So give or take 5-6 years. I learned the following. When I did small flips, meaning let's just say at the time buying for 100 and spending 40 and selling for 180, let's just say, after sales expenses, the profit was 20,000, 25,000, which was really nice. So simple, short, it was a simple flip. It still took 3, 4, 5, 6 months, depending how quickly we would sell. And then because it was still a lot of noise, issues, challenges, managing vendors, contractors, etc. So here's what I found out. First of all, my experience is almost every person in this niche of industry, the professionals, the contractors, the subcontractors, are not my favorite people. Sometimes they're very nice, but for the most part, their values, their commitment, it's not enjoyable, to say the least. So that was not enjoyable for me whatsoever, right? Again and again and again and again and again. So that's one. Second, a smaller flip yield smaller return, not tiny, but smaller return. And still the government came in and took a big portion of that, right? A bigger flip, let's just say you buy for 200, you spend 80,000 and hoping to sell it for 400, right? Or 350 or something like that. That means probably not twice as much the work, but 4 times, not twice as much the teams, but 4 to 6 times the hustle, the problems, the issue, the challenges, the friction between the vendors, and getting more and more vendors, on time to the property, and friction with the inspectors, etc. So doubling from 40 to 80 the construction, the renovation budget, quadruple the noise problems, issues in the system, in the project. So the bigger the project, the more hustle and more problems and more potential delays, etc. So it made things even worse. So much so, many more delays, many more people, many more problems with, again, the same type of crowd, or lack of a better term, not fun to work with, bunch of people or vendors. Every once in a while you get a good one, right? A good, like one vendor here and one vendor there. There's always the really good ones, but I don't like that. And then if you're successful, still the government comes in and takes a big portion out of that. So for me, the entire ordeal was unpleasant, unenjoyable, hustle, headache. And then when you're successful, you're sharing a big portion of it with the government. So it's almost like, why bother, right? So that's kind of my take on it. While at the same time, I can probably buy 1, 2, 3 multiple rental properties with just being patient and fraction of the noise or friction, and achieve over time, not in a short period of time, but the longer period of time, better returns. Okay, hopefully that answered. Which state for, oh, sorry, so I'll take that and I'll come back to the Section 8. My apologies. Which state do you recommend for 2 to 400? I like these days Alabama, Tennessee, Kansas and Missouri, Florida. You can still buy in those states for that budget. That's very generally speaking. What we like to do is actually when we actually start working with a new client is refine it. 2 to 400 is truly our range that we operate in. So much so 250 to 350 is even more refined range. But when we work with a client, then we try to, out of the multiple states, which metro is probably better, or metros are probably better, not just based on the budget, but other factors as well. So thanks for the question. Hopefully I was able to address it. Do you have experience with Section 8 as a real estate investor? Yes, I do. Not extensive, right? So our target segments of the markets are usually the lower middle class, middle class, upper middle class. Those are typically not Section 8 heavily present type of residents, but we do many times by buying a property that already came with a Section 8, and we just inherited the client. Section 8 can be a blessing, but also can be a challenge. All or most of my property managers will say, if we have a Section 8 resident, and Section 8 can be other type of government agency like Section 8, so we're using the Section 8 as a broader term, we will charge you more, not a lot more, but a little bit more, because there's always more hustle and trouble with those agencies. My experiences, for the most part, Section 8 residents are okay, and they really appreciate the fact that they have the voucher and they don't want to lose the voucher. So I think they are usually, my experience, that they have a bad reputation, but I don't think it's justified. The challenge is more the agency or the agency regulation, and not the tenant specifically, right? Of course, there could be an amazing agency, Section 8, in a local. When I say agency, I mean the local office of Section 8. Sometimes it can be an amazing office and a poor tenant, and vice versa. So it's not always clear, but I found that a lot of the hustle is dealing with the Section 8, the local Section 8 agency. For example, we had a situation where, and I think that's just terrible, good Section 8 tenant, no problems, wanted to stay in the property, have been in the property for a long time, but the local Section 8 regulations state that based on the resident's income, she could only pay up to $1,100 or $1,200. Or they could pay for up to $1,100 or $1,200 in rent, and the market rent was $1,600. What do you do? So it's a big gap. So even the owner said, listen, $1,400, I get it. Okay, that's fine. But for me to lose on $400-ish a month, that's a lot of money. In that situation, I don't remember exactly what happened, but I'm almost certain we didn't renew to that tenant, and it's crazy. The owner wanted it. The resident wanted to stay, right? The owner was willing to compromise to lower and the Section 8 says, I'm sorry, we can't do that. Why? Not because of the market, because of the tenant income regulatory formula. Okay, so I like to investigate the local Section 8 agency with my local teams, with my boots on the ground, to verify who am I going to deal with. Are those a nightmare of an agency, or actually okay? They're never easy, but it's all about how difficult that agency could be. My second plan is, how about importing finishing items for the home and supply to contractor? I have European and Asian supplier. Wow. Okay. Let me tell you the challenge. So maybe if you can add to the question, are you local or doing it remotely? In other words, how is the contractor gonna get the supply that they need when they need it? Okay. If you're thinking of, hey, I'll take one of the rooms in the house and I'll storage everything there, be ready for that material to be to grow legs and disappear. So be ready for that. If you're saying I'm local, I'll come out, I have some sort of maybe a locked room, or maybe even I hire you rent some sort of a container outside and you lock it, then that could work if you are truly controlling the supply. Any supply, if you keep it in a warehouse and you have to do the drive, that's fine. You mean you control the supply. Any supply that it's on site and it's not locked behind a lock that only you can get to will eventually, probably slowly and not fully, but get disappeared. If it's not in the property and it's maybe on the exterior, like a container, that may not be even covered by insurance if someone breaks in and steal all of that. So be aware of that. That's a challenge. If you are able to solve that, supplying your contractor the supply and you controlling it, buying it in Europe or Asian, that should be fine. And you control it. That should be, I think that should be fine if you set up how to let them use it. Even importer by the listen, my answer is, if you need to control the access to the supply and not give any contractor or subcontractor, even very trusted ones, access to the supply on their own. You import and you put it in self-storage, and then you go and bring whatever is necessary and bring them, great, no problem. But if you send them to the self-storage and they pull whatever they need, problematic. Just be aware of that. Okay, hopefully I was able to respond to that. Very good. Very good. All right. I want to thank you for the questions. I want to thank you for sticking. I want to thank you for the time. I hope to see you in a month on the next webinar on the LLCs, where I'm going to dive deep into that. And for now, I do want to just wish you happy holidays, and thanks for participating. Bye-bye.